Will Trent Crim reveal Colin's secret? Are AFC Richmond relying on Zava too much? Has Ted become distracted from his job? We'll be considering these questions and more in this video. Welcome to Square Eyes, a channel where we recap, review and take a sideways look at your favourite TV shows. This video will be looking at episode 3 of season 3 of Ted Lasso, called 451. Let's jump straight in. The episode opens up with Colin at home and he comes downstairs and we find out that he's in a relationship with a man. Obviously in 2023 this isn't a very big deal in almost any other walk of life, but for a Premier League footballer it's currently very unusual, or at least it isn't publicly acknowledged, so it's got potential to be a big storyline for Colin this season. The good news is that Colin seems to be happy with Michael, even if he doesn't know he doesn't drink caffeine. A less happy partnership is Colin and his choice of motor vehicle, and he's still struggling to control his Lamborghini and he knocks over the bins on his way out of his driveway. After the credits, the coaches are trying to work out how to accommodate Zava into the team. Colin is chosen to be dropped to the bench to make way for the superstar player, with Danny Rojas shifting back to midfield so Zava can play up front. In the dressing room, the players are getting excited about the arrival of their new colleague. When Richard talks about how sexy Zava's goals are, Isaac says he sounds a bit gay, using the word gay in the kind of casually homophobic way that's all too common in dressing rooms. Then Jamie arrives in the changing room and is unimpressed that Zava has commandeered a whole corner of the changing room, including one of the lockers that Jamie uses to change in. Outside, the assembled press and fans are getting very bored as Zava is late for his unveiling at Richmond. Higgins and Rebecca are nervous that he might not turn up as his contract has only been signed by an e-signature. They needn't have worried though, Zava was upstairs in Rebecca's office all along. Rather than turn up for his unveiling, he was waiting in there for some reason. We then get some nonsense lines from Zava, which sound a little bit profound but actually don't make any sense. He does make a big impact on everyone though, mostly through the charismatic presence that he exudes. Zava then goes to meet the players and it's a similar kind of routine, where he behaves like a pound-shop Jesus. He guides the team in a meditation and tells them that they're bonded, which seems to impress everyone. Then he goes in and rearranges Roy's tactics boards, putting himself up front and putting everyone else at the bottom end of the pitch before leaving for the day. Then Rebecca goes for an appointment with her mother's psychic. She's sceptical, but still holds a broken bowl with the psychic and lets her make a prediction. She talks about a green matchbook, a shining nining armour, and then Rebecca being flipped upside down in bad weather and being soaking wet. That's all too much for Rebecca and she cuts the session short. But as she's getting up to leave, the psychic predicts that Rebecca will become a mother. This, quite understandably, provokes an angry reaction from Rebecca, and she tells the psychic how what she does isn't harmless, it's actually dangerous and cruel. Rebecca has previously talked about how she wanted to start a family with Rupert, but he didn't want to, so she didn't get the chance. So this remark from the psychic was particularly hurtful. Jamie comes in to see Ted and Beard to talk about his concerns about Zava unsettling the dynamic within the team. He's basically saying the same thing to Ted that Ted said to Rebecca in her office in episode 1 of this season, but Ted says he's going to play Zava anyway, but thanks him for his input. Bizarrely, Jamie's been the voice of reason here, even though he's not being listened to. Before the game, the tactics are changed, and it's now pretty much get the ball to Zava and let him do the rest. Then when the players put their hands in the middle, Zava instead puts himself in the middle and let the players put their hands on him. Ted tries to call home before the game kicks off, and when he dials his home phone, it's picked up by Michelle's new partner. It's obvious from the call that Ted already knows the man on the other end of the phone and calls him Dr. Jacob. He's crushed by this interaction, and his mind is clearly not on the game that's about to take place. As the game kicks off, Ted is getting his twitchy hands that usually mean he's about to have a panic attack. He also looks like he's struggling to focus on the match. On the pitch, Zava spotted that the Wolves keeper is way off his line. He tells Jamie to find space, but this is a distraction technique, and he scores a spectacular goal from the halfway line, straight from the kick-off. The goal going in seems to stop Ted's panic attack, and it kicks off a montage of Richmond's season starting to take off, with Zava leading them on a winning streak with a series of lovely goals. Along the way, he also steals a goal off Jamie Tart that was going in anyway, meaning Jamie still hasn't scored a goal this season, and Zava's tally keeps on going up. As well as success on the pitch, the montage also includes Sam's restaurant getting ready for opening, Ted talking to Dr. Sharon about Michelle now being in a relationship with their old marriage therapist, and Colin exchanging messages with Michael. The montage ends with Richmond winning 5 games in a row since Zava's arrival and putting them within 2 points at the top of the table. Then we get to see all the team on a test night at Sam's new restaurant ahead of its official opening. Colin has invited Michael, but he introduces him to his teammates as his wingman, and they both have prepared stories about their exploits attracting women to cover up their real relationship status. Things are fairly strained between Sam and Rebecca when they meet in the restaurant, which leads to Sassy telling Rebecca off for letting their relationship slip through her fingers. In another part of the restaurant, Ted's conversation with Beard is cut short when Jane jumps on Beard and starts trying to swallow him whole. She's still incredibly intense, though I think that's what Beard likes about her. Ted's still struggling to get over the fact that Michelle's seeing their marriage counsellor and looks incredibly sad. Roy sees that Jamie's looking miserable too and gives him some moral support. Jamie's struggling to cope with no longer being the best in the team, so Roy offers to train him up, which Jamie enthusiastically accepts. Shandy goes to talk to Zava, and they seem well matched in terms of their direct way of speaking and their disarming lack of care of what other people think of them. It also seems that Sam is hitting it off well with the chef in his restaurant, a fact that gets noticed by Rebecca too. She's not really got any grounds for jealousy after she rejected him at the end of the last season, but there are some signs of the green-eyed monster on display. Keely tries to snap her out of it by saying there are better things ahead than any we leave behind, which is an interesting thing for her to say, as I'd assumed that she was likely to end up back with Roy rather than a new partner, but perhaps there's a new love interest in the horizon for both her and Rebecca. Sam hands out matchbooks to his guests at the restaurant, and Rebecca is shocked when she sees that the colour is green, matching the prediction of the psychic earlier in the episode. Psychic predictions tend to be broad enough that eventually they'll come true, so it's not exactly a million to one shot that she'd come across a green matchbook, but regardless, this coincidence seems to have rattled her, and she needs a drink to settle her nerves. As Trencrim is leaving the restaurant, he glances down a nearby alleyway and notices that Colin and Michael are kissing passionately. The former journalist now has to decide whether he keeps this a secret or not. This was another good episode of Ted Lasso. I wouldn't say brilliant, but thoroughly entertaining, and it built on the storylines that we've already started, and added a few new ones too. There's a nice balance between drama and comedy, with the actor playing Zava chewing the scenery with his over-the-top performance, which was balanced out with more heartfelt moments for the likes of Ted and Rebecca, who dealt with trickier life stuff at times in this episode. I think it's a good idea for the show to take on a storyline about having a gay footballer, as I think it's pretty shameful that professional football lags behind the rest of society so much in attitudes towards this issue. Despite the fact there are currently no openly gay footballers in the Premier League, it's pretty much an open secret that there are several players that are currently in the closet that choose not to come out because of the abuse they would likely receive. Colin seems to have made the same choice for himself too, presenting Michael to the team as his wingman and joining in the matey changing room banter about being gay for Zava's goals, despite the homophobic undertones of that kind of conversation. We've seen over the course of this series that Colin struggles with his confidence, and he uses the mantra that he's a strong, confident man to try and build himself up. But it mustn't be very good for his confidence to have to hide such a fundamental part of himself from his teammates. Trent Grimm witnessing Colin's kiss with Michael creates a situation where Trent could potentially leak their story to the press. He's no longer a tabloid journalist himself, but he'll have connections, and he'll know just how big a story this would be if he was to pass it on. However, I think Trent's a nice guy, and I just can't see him being willing to do that. I think it might be a good thing for Colin to come out of the closet, but it should be on his terms and carefully managed, rather than something that's leaked out through the press. Zava's arrival has sent the team on a winning streak that no one was predicting for Richmond at the start of the season. However, I think Jamie was right when he said that it's unbalanced the team. Everything is built around one player, and it's not really the kind of philosophy that Ted wanted to encourage when he first arrived at the club. I have a feeling that Zava's influence on the team will end up being negative in the end. It doesn't feel like a satisfying end to the story if Richmond win the league because they bought a superstar and he won it for them. Instead, I suspect he's going to leave the team before the season ends, and they're going to have to find a way to win without him. Jamie and Roy working together to make Jamie better than Zava could be part of that journey. It's nice to see these two trying to help each other. Last episode we had Jamie offering Roy emotional support after he split with Keeley. This week we had Roy supporting Jamie now he's not the team's best player. They're a good pairing, and it'll be interesting to see how Roy does when he's coaching Jamie. Rebecca's feelings about the psychic mirrored my own. I'm very sceptical about such things. I'm not keen on predictions being used as foreshadowing devices in programmes either. Having said that, it's hard not to try and unpick things that the psychic said and see what they mean. We've already seen the matchbook at Sam's restaurant. The shining dining armour is most likely a reference to Jamie Tart somehow coming to help Rebecca, as he wears the number 9 jersey for the team, and well, he's a bit of a shite, if you excuse my language. The bit about being flipped upside down and being underwater sounds like a car crash near a river or the sea. I'm reaching a bit here, but Colin has been shown several times to really struggle to control his Lamborghini, so if anyone's going to be involved in a car crash, my money will be on him. Then there's a bit about becoming a mother, which seemed really cruel. Well, there were a few possibilities about this one. While it's biologically possible that she could become pregnant, I have a feeling that the motherhood may be more about taking on the role of a mother through adoption or fostering or something similar. The child she could become a mother to could be Nora if something was to happen to Sassy, as she's already her godmother. Or Henry if Rebecca and Ted were to become an item and Henry came to live in England for some reason. I'm wildly speculating, but I don't think that motherhood line was just thrown in there, so there must be something to it. As for Ted in this episode, he's now completely lost focus on his job and is obsessed by Michelle's new relationship with her marriage counsellor. Obviously, it's completely unethical that they're in a relationship now. Whether they started seeing each other during the therapy or after, it's still completely wrong for a therapist to see their patient unless a significant amount of time's passed, and we know it's only 18 months since they were in therapy. Even so, it's not healthy for Ted to be so derailed by this news, and he seems to be deeply unhappy. It's a real shame. My favourite line in this episode came from Jamie Tart when he told Coach Beard that I wasn't being ironic, I was being hypocritical, after Beard called him out for accusing other players of being self-absorbed glory hunters who only care about themselves. The look on Beard's face when he realises that Jamie accurately corrected him is superb. Ted picks up on it too and rubs Beard's nose in it, which is even better. Colin's comment about how his body is less of a temple and more like a church and an airport is very similar to the insult Nate made towards him in the last season, where he said that Danny and Jamie were like master painters and he was like a painter in a chain hotel. We also saw Colin's sexuality foreshadowed back in season 2, where he mentioned the gay hookup app, Grindr, as Keely was trying to explain the banter app to the team. Zava kisses his own hand when it looks like he's kissing Keely's, which I'm certain was a choice rather than a mistake. Zava would rather kiss his own hand than someone else's because he loves himself so much. Ted referenced his bad experience with the marriage counsellor several times in season 2, which suggests that there was something fishy about Jake from the start. If he wasn't already seeing Michelle at that point, he may have been trying to destroy their relationship so he could then swoop in and seduce Michelle after the breakup. Either way, it's incredibly unethical, and he'll most likely lose his job if his regulating body knew he was in a romantic relationship with a patient. There's no way that Richmond would have been allowed to play in their orange kit against Manchester United in their red home kit, because there isn't enough contrast between the two colours. It will be almost impossible for colourblind people to tell the difference. As someone who's colourblind myself, I find it infuriating when clubs try and skirt these rules and play in their preferred away kits. But in this situation, Richmond would have been expected to play in their third kit. Looking ahead to the next few episodes, there are quite a lot of things going on at AFC Richmond. The thing that I'm most interested in is to find out whether Trent Crimm acts on what he saw between Colin and Michael. My instincts are that he won't, but that doesn't mean that there won't be more to come from that storyline, and we might see Colin come out of the closet for another reason. Teddy's also going to have to deal with his feelings about his ex-wife Michelle's starting a relationship with her marriage counsellor, as it's clearly eating him up inside and it's distracting him from his job. Though luckily for Ted, the team are succeeding anyway, because Zava is single-handedly storming the league for Richmond. I get the feeling that Jamie's comments about wanting them to play as more of a team will be something that we'll need to do later in the season, but for now they're a one-man team. I'm not sure it's wise to put all their trust in a notoriously erratic and eccentric footballer who's known to leave a trail of chaos behind him at every club he plays at. We've also got to see if the psychic's predictions come true too. Putting together my earlier speculation, I think Jamie Tartt's going to save Rebecca from drowning after Colin causes a car accident of some sort. I may be way off though, so don't put any bets on that prediction. Then there's Nate at West Ham to think about. AFC Richmond will face West Ham in the next episode and will leapfrog them in the table if they win. It will also be Rebecca's chance to get one over on Rupert too, so there'll be plenty of personal rivalry riding on that game. I can't wait. Thank you for watching my recap and review of episode 3 of season 3 of Ted Lasso. I'll be back with my video of episode 4 next week, shortly after the episode airs. Please subscribe to make sure you don't miss it. Goodbye.